Hey everybody, this is Lord Magicus, and this week we're going to play Merfolk in Legacy. Yeah, I know I've said we probably weren't going to be doing this for quite a while, but we actually have some good reason to try this again. So, as some of you might remember, not too long ago, Nikachu played a match versus Jim Davis. It was the Merfolk versus Goblins, and he got there in Legacy in a match where nobody thought he really had a chance in Legacy, but he was playing a 5-0 list that he saw of Merfolk playing Chrome Mox, and that got me thinking, okay, well maybe there's some value in testing out Chrome Mox lists with Merfolk. So and there's a couple good reasons to consider it. Well, first of all, Aether Vial is just really slow, and it's very vulnerable against Oko. By the time that we get it ticked up to where we need it to get ticked up to, if Aether Vial is a problem for the opponent, they'll just Oko and Elk it. So yeah, we're not getting to put anything important off of it for at least a few turns, and like even by that point, if it is going to be an issue, it's easy for them to remove. Chrome Mox, on the other hand, lets us play all of our good stuff, you know, like Lord of Atlantis and Merfolk Trickster and Silvergill Adept. We can jam that on turn 1. Even Chalice of the Void on X=1 can be played before the opponent even puts an island in play, so they can't daze it. That is huge. That gives us some opportunity to start games where the opponent is effectively locked out of the game because they didn't actually get to play anything before this chalice came down on a relevant number. Because like normally we in the past we could only ever play on turn 2. And on turn 2, the opponent's usually going to have a fetch land, and if they have a daze in hand, they absolutely will daze the chalice, and or they might go, you know, fetch island, brainstorm, and then daze it. Or if they found like a braid or something, they don't even need to worry about it. But here, we can get the chalice on 1 before they can actually do anything. So now they're just going to be stuck with, you know, that brainstorm in their hand, and they're just staring sadly at this chalice with a bunch of cards that they probably can't cast. So all of the good cantrips, like all the bolts, like the delvers and stuff, they're offline. Swords to Plowshares offline, which is, I think, incredibly important for us. I mean, if they can't fix their hand based on the matchup, that like if they can't shuffle away the dead cards, like it's going to be much harder for them to actually play a reasonable game, while we're just jamming out huge threats like True Name Nemesis on turn 2. And that's another thing, because we have Chrome Mox, we can start playing 3 drops on turn 2, which makes them much more playable in our deck. So True Name is really good, and Oko is a card that can just win the game by itself. You resolve Oko, and yeah, the opponent is in a lot of trouble. And if you get the Chalice on 1, you protect it from Pyroblast too, which is excellent. Getting to 3 mana also means that Force of Negation can be hard cast once you get whatever unit. If you get like Oko in play, you know, untap with it, then you know Force can actually be. You can pay 3 mana to protect it that way. So even if they find like a braid or something in the future, it's not going to actually help them get out of this. Or if they try to play their own Oko, we have Force for that, which is nice. Now there's really 2 ways you can go. If you want to play like a rampy kind of Merfolk list like this, there's actually 2 cards you could play here. One of them is Chrome Mox, and the other is Mox Diamond. A lot of decks in Legacy play Mox Diamond because discarding lands is generally better than having to get rid of gas from your hand. And also, it discards lands, and that means things like Life from the Loam usually works really well in those style of decks because they get the card advantage back. So the disadvantage of Chrome Mox is that you have to exile usually a relevant card from your hand instead of extra mana sources, so you might just end up with a bunch of lands and like 1 or 2 blue cards and a Chrome Mox, and like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with this? It doesn't actually help. If I'm ramping into 1 card and then I have nothing else in my hand, Chrome Mox is terrible. But there is a slight difference though. Chrome Mox, you can play it without having to get rid of anything. If you want to just play it as a 0 mana artifact that doesn't do anything, you can have it and play like that. If you play a Mox Diamond and you don't discard anything, you don't get to keep the Mox Diamond. So why does that matter? Well, we have Oko. So if we really want to, we can use the Chrome Mox as an elk. We can just, play the Chrome Mox for a 0 and then tick up Oko on it and just elk it. So now we have like basically a 0 mana 3/3. So Oko helps take away that disadvantage that we normally would see with this. So kind of the same way how Mox Diamond has Life from the Loam to recover some value from it. Now Chrome Mox has Oko to help recover some value out of it. So any extra ones you draw late in the game are actually still useful with Oko. And there's one other huge difference now that I think makes Chrome Mox way more playable than it used to be, and it's that we can pitch lands to it now. Well, okay, but you see, it says it has to be a non-artifact, non-land card, but guess what? We have dual-face modal cards now, like Glasspool Mimic and Seagate Restoration. They're not technically lands when they're in their hand. They are blue cards that can be imprinted onto Chrome Mox, and they take up land slots in our deck. So we actually have less dead land draws here, and more things that we can actually throw under the Chrome Mox. This makes it much easier to get the value out of this. So we mitigated the disadvantage a little bit with Oko, and we've also mitigated the gas problem a little with these dual face cards. And turns out Glasspool Mimic is also very similar to a card that we used to play in this deck anyway. We liked having Phantasmal Image for a long time. Now, Image's biggest problem, I think, is that Oko is a card that exists now, and if you've tried to copy a Lord, for instance, well, they're just going to tick up Oko to elk your image, and guess what? You don't get an elk out of that. The image gets targeted and it dies, and you don't get anything. But Glasspool Mimic, if you copy Lord and they elk your Glasspool Mimic, well, you get at least to keep the elk. So, in addition to also being mana for our deck and also something that can be pitched to Chrome Mox, it's also a much better card for copying our creatures than Phantasmal Image was. So I think honestly Glasspool, it's the way of the future for us. We're probably never going to go back to Phantasmal Image. Like, I think this is just a much better version of the card. And if Aether Vial ever becomes a thing again, this is also much better than Image for one other good reason, and it's that True Name Nemesis is 3. It costs 3. It's like the best thing that you can copy most of the time. And Glasspool also costs 3. So if you think about it, like, okay, what was one of our worst problems before with Vial? Well, if you take Vial up to 3 and put in True Name, you don't really have anything else to put into play with it. But now you actually have the Image costs 2, so you have to like, and you can't use Cavern of Souls on Image, so it would be terrible in that case. It was just a shapeshifter, and the Image could be countered. So you either had to choose between keeping your Vial on 2 and hoping to draw a land to cast this, or you take up to 3 and then you have to take the risk that the Image is going to get countered. Mimic solves a couple problems in that front though, because now, both of these are on 3. So if you're going to play with Aether Vial, you take it up to 3, now you have True Name, and then you can start vialing in Mimics afterwards to copy the True Name. But there's also one other thing that you should note here. Mimic is a rogue. Yeah, I don't know why it's a rogue. It's a shapeshifter rogue. But guess what? True Name Nemesis is also a rogue. So if we're in a situation, and now this is the relevant part to our deck, we might actually consider putting a Cavern of Souls on rogue, because it can make the True Name uncounterable, but it can also make the Glasspool Mimic uncounterable. And that's something that, we could never do with Phantasmal Image. It was the image, like putting it on Illusion, like the Image is the only, I'm sorry, it wasn't Shapeshifter, it was Illusion. Like, if you put the Cavern on Illusion for the Phantasmal Image, that's the only creature in the deck that actually can be used with that Cavern. But here, you can put it on Rogue for True Name Nemesis and Glasspool. And so now we have an easy way, we either name Merfolk or Rogue, and now every creature in our deck can actually be uncounterable with this Cavern of Souls. And there's one other thing that we should mention that we don't have it in this list, but there's another rogue that we play. All right, this is important. Where are we at here? Yeah, Brazen Borrower, also a rogue. So if we decided that we wanted to play with any copies of Brazen Borrower, which at some point, like, this list might want some. Like, you could very easily, like, slot 2 borrowers in over this boomerang in the sideboard. Like, that would definitely work. Well, the petty theft is still counterable, but at some point, like, if you resolve the petty theft and then you go to play the borrower later, the Cavern on Rogue makes this uncounterable. So that would actually be 3 different rogue creatures that we could make use of this Cavern of Souls with. So Shapeshifter being a rogue is actually surprisingly more relevant than you would think. So, and I think in basically every way, this is just a much better replacement for a Phantasmal Image. It's worth also noting that Seagate Restoration and Glasspool Mimic can both be pitched to Force of Will. So they're lands that can be pitched to Chrome Mox, but they can also be pitched to Force. Either Force of Will or Force of Negation, actually. It's worth noting. Yeah, and we have 14 actual lands and 8 not lands. So we're up to a total of 22 lands, which means getting to 3 mana to cast Force of Negation is a much more realistic dream. Like, a lot of times we didn't always have enough blue sources to be able to, like, get to 1 colorless and then blue. But here, that shouldn't actually be that much of an issue. If we need to get to that mana, we can get to it. So I like the look of this sort of list a lot better. This is almost exactly what Tuxdev had posted in the Fish Discord, but I made like 2 small changes to it. Instead of playing like 2 Flooded Strand and 2 Deltas, I'm playing 1 of each fetch land, which is probably not relevant, but in case for whatever reason the opponent tries to like needle your fetch land, they only turn off 1 instead of 2. So it costs like a lot more extra ticks in order to get the Rainforest and the Tarn for these sort of decks. So like, if you don't have them already, I wouldn't tell you to go out and buy them for this purpose, but if you do have them, you may as well play them like this, because I would say it's technically more correct to do so. And the only other change is in the sideboard here, because he did not have Relic of Progenitus. He was playing 4 Cage and the 4th copy of 4th Negation, but I like the 2 relics here, so let's look at the sideboard quick, because this is also worth mentioning. 2 Boomerang. We need to have some bounce spells. So Oko can deal with a lot of the problem cards, but so if the opponent just plays something like Ensnaring Bridge or like Plague Engineer, you know what, that's fine. We can elk those things. However, if they like needle Oko with like either Pithing Needle or Sorcerous Spyglass, or maybe even Phyrexian Revoker, Boomerang can bounce them so that we can unlock Oko and actually still get an extra activation out of it. Maybe even like use a force on the spell that we bounced next time. It can also bounce some really important lands like Tabernacle or Glacial Chasm. If we're up against lands, like, those are things that you need to consider. Yeah, especially Glacial Chasm. Like, having an answer to that in the deck is really, really meaningful. I think, yeah, because otherwise, like, you can get locked out of the game by that. So there's some value in playing Boomerang over Brazen Borrower. Now, that's not to say that there's a real chance that maybe, you know, we don't see enough of like the land targets for it. Maybe Borrower is fine, but we're gonna try it with Boomerang first, because that's how I saw the list, and I like this card. I think we should at least test it first before we make too many changes. Extra force, just, you know, against unfair stuff. Dismember, we have always played this card. This card's great. Return to Nature. Since we're playing green mana for Oko anyway, we may as well have this in here. So it's another way to get rid of stuff like Ensnaring Bridge or Pithing Needle on Oko to keep those cards relevant. And in a pinch, it can also be used against, we could have it against Reanimator, exiling whatever they're trying to target with Reanimate. So its 3rd mode does stuff sometimes. It's not irrelevant. It's also fine against like Death and Taxes. Like, they bring in a sword, like or like a Batterskull, you just destroy it. You know, that solves so many problems. And then Graveyard Hate, Grafdigger's Cage is really good against like Hogak and that sort of nonsense. Dredge, obviously, it's very strong. Relic, it's mostly the same, but also Relic is a little bit better against Uro and Mystic Sanctuary decks, which is why I wanted to try 2 of them, because, like, honestly, it's really hard to beat Mystic Sanctuary without this card. They can just like play Terminus and then Sanctuary, put it on top of the deck and Terminus you again. Like, how do you get back into a game after that? It's hard. But Relic can at least give you a shot, because then after the first Terminus, if they go to Sanctuary, you just exile their Terminus from the graveyard and they don't get it back again. Yeah, the miracles with the Sanctuary are just brutal. You know, once they've miracled it once, it goes back on top, so they miracle it a second time. It's just the absolute worst. So yeah, I do like this, and like it, as we know in Modern, like this card is very good at keeping Uro under control by keeping the actual graveyard size small. And I think even against decks like Hogak, there's some value in that too, because they don't have to cast Hogak from the they can cast it from their hand just by delving. So if you can keep them off of enough cards in their graveyard, they can't actually cast Hogak, even if even if you have Grafdigger's Cage out, that might not be enough to stop them, so some combination of the two might be better. And then finally, I asked Tux about this card, and he said this was previously the Back to Basics slot, but Damping Sphere is probably a little bit more reasonable, because this is also something that we can cast on turn 1 with Chrome Mox, and there's going to be a lot of matches where that might be relevant, like against Storm or even Eldrazi, because it turns off all of the soul lands, which means now their clunky 4 and 5 drops, it's going to take them a long time to actually get to that mana, and they can't just like turn 2 Thought-Knot Seiryu. So yeah, and obviously against Storm, like this is a card they have to answer before they can win usually. It just adds to the critical density of hate that they have to beat, and honestly, you need a little bit more against Storm these days than you used to have, because they have fucking Veil of Summer. So like the Chalice probably has to go on 1 to keep your forces alive, and then the Sphere is something that you can play that now they have to choose, okay, do I Abrupt Decay the Chalice or do I get rid of the Sphere? Like, it's not an easy choice, so the more must-answer cards you have against them, the better it's going to be overall. So yeah, I don't know. This list looks interesting. I'm willing to try this, and this is going to be a little experimental, so we might find that it doesn't necessarily work out the way we want it to the first go around, but this will be like draft 1 of this deck, and then probably next week we will play a second league, but we might modify this list a little bit. And I'm hoping that we might have a guest for next week when we play this as well. So we'll see how that goes, but for now, let's go and get into this and see how this does. I will see you in just a second here. Okay, here we go. We are on the play. This I don't think we can keep. I am not willing to pitch 4 cards in order to play something. I am more willing to keep this. Can put a Force in the bottom here. And I'm willing to pitch the Glass Pool to Chrome Mox so I can play Chalice in 1. Alright. So already we see Chalice in 1. Let's see if this is a match where it matters. Windswept Heath means probably not. I don't really need to play that right now, so just pass. We do have Merfolk Trickster, but I don't know if I'm going to play it right away. I kind of want to see what they're doing first, because I might need to keep it for Force. So Savannah. Alright, so in Caracas. So this looks like Maverick. Okay. Which means I don't know how much value there is to holding this. Alright, I am gonna do this. Well, that's terrible. we're very far away from being able to use Oko to turn them into cards. So we don't have a green source. I was really hoping we could draw a Lord so we can continue attacking with this Trickster. So they don't have Swords to Plowshares online. They can't play like Giver of Runes or Noble Hierarch, so the Chalice is not irrelevant. It is hurting them, I think, a little bit, but if they have like Stoneforge Mystic, we are in some deep shit. I don't think we can beat Stoneforge at this point. And I don't think that holding up Trickster for Force, that was probably not going to win that game if we go that route. We need to be aggressive against this. The more time we give them to figure out a plan, the more likely we are to lose to their fair game plan. So maybe Knight of the Reliquary could be coming, which would be also bad. Skyclave Apparition. I don't like this. Okay, so they might be getting rid of the Chalice if it's a problem for them. No, they get rid of the Chrome Mox. Oh, that makes sense. So I guess we might be using this other Chrome Mox with this Force of Will. Okay. Obviously no blocks. Alright, so Force is definitely getting pitched to Chrome Mox here. We actually have... Oh, so, you know, this ended up not being the worst thing, but this one's still pretty bad. It does mean every Skyclave Apparition they have is a 2-for-1. I can't really attack into this yet. I need to hope that I draw, like, Lord of Atlantis. Playing Chrome Mox now means that if we draw True Name Nemesis, we can actually cast it next turn. Because it requires 1 mana to get this online. But if they have, like, another Skyclave, we're in some trouble. True Name would actually help, though. If we can get that out, like... That is one of our better cards against this, especially if we can like follow it up with like Glass Pools. Well, this is definitely not the kind of match that we want Chalice for, though. This is going to be... Green Sun Zenith for 3, it means probably Knight of the Reliquary, I would imagine. Yeah. So yeah, we have to do something faster. We're going to lose. They have a handful of gas, and we have a handful of artifacts that don't really work against their deck. I mean, this isn't much different from regular Merfolk either. Oh my god. I like can't. Do I just play this? I can't actually use the Force here. I could just play it with Chrome Mox. So like what I'm thinking here is, no matter what I draw next turn, even if it's a blue card, like I want to be casting it. I don't really want to be holding it for Force, so I think I actually do. The only thing I could draw is like Oko, but I can't cast that anyway. Is there any reason I would need to have the extra mana? I guess in case they have another Skyclave Apparition. Let's do that. Because at least if they have another Skyclave, then doing this means I can still play like True Name next turn. Alright. We are just F6ing here. This Trickster is not going to do anything against this board. They're going to like destroy us very quickly. Well, I only had one one creature this whole game. It's terrible. And I think that, yeah, that's pretty much a concede. We can't beat the Batterskull and this. Like, it's just too much. This can also, you know, they can end up equipping the Batterskull into this, and then, well, see, here's the Wasteland, so it's probably good that we did this. Yeah, I still can't afford to really block these. Alright. The glass pool doesn't really do anything, though. Yeah. Alright, we're dead. I'm sure that we're losing to this. Okay, so Chalice is terrible here. We need Dismember, and I think Return to Nature is actually not... Relic is not the worst thing either. I don't like the Force of Negation. Oko is actually very good. I want to keep the forces in case they have, like, fuck, what's it called? Stoneforge Mystic, there we go. The relics are fine because they actually undermine the Knight of the Reliquary. And they also do play Scavenging Ooze, which just hurts a little bit too. I don't think the Boomerang matters. You know what? They do have there is Green Sun Zenith, so like the Grafdigger's Cage is not totally irrelevant either. I don't think there's anything else that they play that really matters with, though. And I like that the Relic at least cycles. You know what? I don't know. It's actually pretty tough here. Maybe we do play. Oh, I can just play one cage. That's fine. This is gonna be tough. Like, we need to have the true names here for this, and we did not have like any of the creatures. We just drew like complete. Like, if our that hand against something like Storm probably would have been a lot better. Not against Maverick though. That's always been a perpetual problem of our decks. Like, sometimes you just, you know, have a hand that has a whole bunch of interaction that's good against like blue decks but not good against green decks. I think this is fine, actually. We can keep this. So here I'm going to play Glasspool as a land, because they do play the Wastelands and they're probably likely to go after our mana. So I want to have as many mana sources here as possible in case they go for the Wasteland strategy. Mother of Runes is very annoying. However, okay, that's not the worst. Let's play Cavern and Merfolk. I want to keep this Tropical Island in case we draw Oko. I think here we play Silvergill Adept, and then we can hold up like Dismember next turn. I guess I will show them Lord of Atlantis because that's the most likely thing I'll play. Okay. This is good against exactly like Green Sun Zenith and not much else. At least I don't think they have anything else that it's going to matter against. Oh no. So, yeah, of course, Stoneforge it is. They do have the Batterskull, so I think here the right thing to do is probably play the Trickster. Let's get a basic island. So if I Trickster the Mother of Runes, then I can dismember this thing. And if they tap it in response, then I can just dismember it anyway. I have to kill the Stoneforge right now because they'll put Batterskull in, and we don't really have a good way of beating that at the moment. Actually, you know what? No, you know what? Okay, now I'm gonna change plans here. Now I want to get rid of the Mother of Runes because we do have a plan. We have Return to Nature. So it's going to protect that. I don't care if you protect that. So next turn I can attack, and if they try to if they try to Stoneforge in the Batterskull, I can actually blow it up. And it's likely that they're going to go for that line too. I can even play the Lord of Atlantis first, which will be great. Okay, no, I think this is a much better plan. And get rid of this, because this thing like makes it impossible to like kill the other creatures. Maybe this one is. We're not doing too bad here. I think we're about to blow them out. Not even going to give them the chance. So, okay, now this is not terrible. We have a board state and they really don't at the moment. But that could change. But we're not doing terrible, at least. I might keep this Seagate in hand just in case I draw a force. Oh, that's not great. Can't really deal with that. It would be nice if I had like another Dismember or something, or even a Trickster. We almost could get to 7 mana, except I think this is going to kill us before that. So, this is going to be rough. I could block it with these two things, and then trade this with one of these. Right, let's play the Grafdigger's Cage. Just hopefully you can keep them off Green Sun Zenith. I guess I'm going to play the Scalding Tarn because I can at least get another land if I need it. I'm probably not going to crack it though. I don't really need to crack it. We are super fucked if they have like Swords to Plowshares. They can just Swords my Lord and then attack us for 4. And then we have no chance of blocking this thing. That's not much better actually, because they can still just eat the Lord and now they can attack for 4. And I can't block. So I need to have like True Name Nemesis. Because True Name can block this. At least it makes their attacks bad. Well, not bad. I guess it doesn't make them bad. It makes it so they like can't really hit me. So the thing doesn't have trample. That's not great. That's gonna get really big. That's not the worst. I guess I'm just passing here, right? There's one creature in the graveyard, so this can be a 3/3. I probably will just Trickster the Questing Beast. And save myself some life this turn. Hope that I can find a better plan. But we're not doing great. Like they had threats to back up the Stoneforge, so that's making it difficult. I mean, that's usually how it goes. Like, we can beat like 1, sometimes 2 good things, but they have like 4 good things right now. And does not look like their deck is splashing blue for Oko, so Island Walk is not going to be a thing. They appear to be just playing just like the traditional green-white version. So no attacks because they know I can at least double block this. That's also a problem. I don't have an answer for that. I do not want to pay 3 life for this thing. I think we are dead. Because we're going to take 3 from this, and like the rest of these attacks are not great. I mean, if they attack with it, like I have to block this because this will kill me. I have to block this because this will kill me. And I have to block this. So like we're taking 5, we're going to 2, we're dead next turn. And we're losing our entire board. No, you have to attack with everything this turn. Like it would be silly not to. Like none of this really matters. Yeah, there you go. We get a 2/2 out of this Skyclave, but like that's still not really enough to turn the tides here. So I do have to block here. This is threatening to eat this Mother of Runes and become a 3/3, so I have to block this. And I'm going to block the Skyclave, so at least I have a body, but like, doesn't matter. There's nothing we can draw that's going to actually help us here. Yield through this turn. Yeah. They just kept drawing gas and we kept flooding out, which is unfortunate. This is a very tough match for us, like, under normal circumstances, but when you start flooding like this, like, absolutely terrible. Like, I don't think Oko would even be enough. I don't know why you're eating the grape. Oh, well, you just ate my 2 creatures. That makes sense. Okay. Okay. Concede. Look at this. We drew 8 lands. That's so dumb. We had such a good start to this game, but we drew 8 lands. So like, what are you gonna do? We had 8 lands and like how many non-lands? 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Oh, I guess they exiled like a few more things. So I don't know. Like with 14, like I guess it's more like 18 lands because we do have Glass Pool. I don't know. We still should not have like flooded out this hard. That's insane. But what are you gonna do? It's Maverick. Like that's gonna happen a lot of times. So like I don't expect to win this like a huge percentage of the time. Like they're definitely favored in this match. So it is what it is. We move on and we will go to round 2 and hope that we just do better. Like yeah, draw better and get better pairings. So. Alright, well, please give this a thumbs up and leave some nice comments. I'm curious to know what you think about this. I will see you again tomorrow.